Mr. Leader, what was this shutdown about?
Well, from the very beginning, we've said to the American people, and most importantly, perhaps to our Republican colleagues, that we will find a bipartisan path forward with respect to any spending agreement, as long as it makes life better for the American people, but at the same time, decisively addresses the Republican health care crisis that is crushing people all across the country in every part of America. Rural America, working class America, urban America, the heartland of America, small town America, and of course black and brown communities all throughout America.
I'm at Thanksgiving coming up, right? People have political debates. And somebody says, what was that fight about? Now, I got to answer it at the Thanksgiving table. What does someone say?
Democrats are fighting hard, and we will continue to do this, to address the Republican health care crisis and to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits to make sure that tens of millions of everyday Americans don't experience dramatically increased health care costs that will prevent them from being able to go see a doctor when they need one.
Was it worth it, though, to have the longest shutdown in history, make people who are on SNAP benefits worried about getting food, members of the service, military, on and on and on, air traffic controllers? Was it worth it?
Donald Trump and Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They've taken a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning of Donald Trump's first day in office. And unfortunately, they made the decision that they would rather shut the government down, hurt everyday Americans, as opposed to extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits, even though they know they expire at the end of this year and tens of millions of people are about to face a crisis of affordability with respect to their access to health care.
But Democrats made a choice. Democrats said in the Senate in particular, we're not going to vote with the Republicans. We're going to have this fight because the issue is important. Was it worth having the fight going on as long as it did to shut down the government?
Fighting for the health care of the American people, fighting to drive down the high cost of living, fighting to lift up the quality of life of everyday Americans will always be worth it. It's unfortunate that Republicans have decided that they were going to shut the government down. They decided to rip away SNAP benefits from 42 million Americans when the money existed to make sure that not a single person went hungry. They decided that they would rather find $40 billion to bail out Argentina, but can't find a dime to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
So the short answer is yes, the shutdown was worth it.
The short answer is shutdowns are never things to be embraced, and unfortunately, Republicans decided to embrace a shutdown with their complete control of government rather than sit down with Democrats and find a bipartisan path forward.
You mentioned that of those 8 Democrats in the Senate who voted ultimately with Republicans to end the shutdown, you said they're going to have to explain themselves. What does that mean?
Well, they're going to have to explain their vote, just like all of us when we go back home into our districts, if you're a member of the House, or whether you represent an entire state, as is the case in the United States Senate, and explain their votes to the American people. We're very confident as Democrats that in the House, we've taken a position that is principled, that is focused on driving down the high cost of living and focused on fixing our broken health care system that is crushing the American people in an environment where Republicans have enacted already the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, and Republican policies are forcing hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers across America, including in rural parts of the country, to close.
Because when you say they have to explain themselves, it makes it sound like they've got something to explain.
We all
Not
have
just,
to, well,
I'm sure you all have to explain.
Yeah, but you know, John, we all, listen, on every single vote, particularly high-profile votes, we all have to explain ourselves to our constituents. And, you know, it's not for me to explain why someone in the United States Senate decided to break from a majority of their colleagues and partner with Republicans.
They sell out their party?
Well, again, Republicans are going to have to explain themselves in terms of their effort to gut the health care of the American people. And Democrats in the Senate, Democrats in the House will all have to explain our individual votes.
What do you hear from your constituents about those 8 senators?
Well, I haven't heard actually from our constituents about those 8 senators, but what I have heard is keep up the fight. Protect the health care of the American people. Address this crisis. And America is too expensive. And we can't afford basic necessities. And housing costs are too high. Grocery costs are too high. Utility bills and electricity bills are through the roof. And health care costs are way too high. We need you to do something about it.
Well, one of the things we hear is, we wanted you to fight. You were fighting, and then You gave up in the end.
Well, House Democrats are in this fight until we win this fight. This fight is not over for us. We're just getting started.
What does that mean, though, for somebody who doesn't know the ins and outs of the House? How are you just getting started when the big fight that was teed up and the Democrats seem to be unified on, then they weren't unified and now it's over?
Well, Democrats remain strongly opposed to this Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. The Affordable Care Act tax credits expire on December 31st. We're in open enrollment right now. And Republicans in the House and some in the Senate have all said this is an issue that needs to be addressed. Democrats today have introduced legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits by 3 years. And we're going to force Republicans to vote on that. If not today, at some point soon.
Do you have the votes for that?
Republicans claim that they want to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. They'll have an opportunity to do so since their leadership refuses to do that.
Did you find any allies during the shutdown on this question, either of health care or SNAP benefits or anything that either surprised you or that you've been able to work with on the other side of the aisle?
3 words, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been very clear that this health care crisis is not made up, it's real. Republicans have no health care plan, and that Democrats are correct in fighting to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
6 months ago, if I'd said to you, Leader Jeffries, Marjorie Taylor Greene is who you're going to be quoting as your ally on anything, would you have said, oh, that makes sense?
I would have said I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn.
Well, what's the price? Because it's now happened. Standing up to Donald Trump didn't work. That's what independent Angus King, Senator, said. Is that right?
No, I think that standing up to Donald Trump and the extremism that has been unleashed on the American people from the very beginning of this presidency was just rejected in terms of that extremism all across America in the midterm elections or in the off-year elections that took place. Understand, Republicans were decisively crushed all throughout America in these off-year elections. They lost in New Jersey, in Virginia, in New York, in California, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Mississippi, and at all points up and down the ballot in between. That was a rejection of Donald Trump's extremism and an embrace of the Democratic vision to deal with the affordability crisis that exists in the United States of America.
And as you know better than anybody, there are a lot of Democrats who cite that same history you just did and say, we were on the 2-yard line and then we handed them the football by giving up on this shutdown.
The Affordable Care Act tax credits expire on December 31st. We have to continue to press our case to compel Republicans to deal with this. And if they fail to do so, Republicans will pay a political price next November when Republicans are thrown out of office by the American people and Democrats take back control of the House.
The politics of shutdowns. It used to be a true thing in Washington that if you start a shutdown, you're going to pay a price. And the Republicans learned that. What I wonder is, you've been making the case for the Affordable Care Act subsidies, but does the way a shutdown ends end up determining the story about the shutdown that swamps any benefits you all may have gained during that 40-day period?
The American people have clearly been with Democrats from the beginning. They know that we're on the right side of this fight. They know that Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and that Republicans under Donald Trump have adopted a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning. So Republicans shut the government down because they were unwilling to provide affordable health care to working-class Americans, middle-class Americans, and everyday Americans. Public sentiment has been consistent from the very beginning that Republicans are to blame for shutting down the government and Democrats on the right side of the health care affordability issue.
You think it'll be that way in a month?
Yes.
Last question. You are the wrong person to ask this question, but I'm going to try it out. You're the leader. You can't go sowing division in your party. But there are some Democrats who say, we need to have a fight about what our approach is going to be. We're either going to be, very tough and stick with the shutdown and really take it to Donald Trump, or we're going to have to sort of adopt something closer to those 8 senators, Democratic senators, who voted to end the shutdown. And that fight needs to happen in the Democratic Party. Does there need to be an open, honest debate in the Democratic Party about tactics and strategy?
Well, I don't think that's an actual debate that's going on within the Democratic Party. What we saw during the off-year elections is that Democrats are united around the issue of dealing with the affordability crisis in this country, lowering the high cost of living, and fixing our broken health care system, while at the same time pushing back against the extremism that Donald Trump and Republicans have unleashed on the American people and cleaning up corruption. That's a unifying set of objectives that Democrats have, and that will guide us into next year as we win the midterm elections.
Unified on objectives, but not on tactics.
Well, I think that tactics follow objectives. And so from the standpoint of our value set, that's what's most important, that the American people continue to understand that we're fighting hard to address this affordability crisis. Donald Trump promised to lower costs on day one. Costs aren't going down, costs are going up. The American people want action in this area, and they know that Democrats are the only ones to provide it.
Democratic Party more unified or less unified coming out of this shutdown?
We've been incredibly unified throughout the last several weeks, and we will remain unified as we continue this fight on behalf of the American people.
No work to do on unity? Everything's just fine?
Well, the Democratic Party, of course, remains a big tent, and so there are always going to be family conversations. But as long as we unite around a core set of principles, lowering the high cost of living, addressing the affordability crisis, combating the Republican health care crisis, fixing our broken health care system, extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, push back against Donald Trump's extremism, and clean up corruption, we will have the unity necessary to prevail for the American people.
Leader Jeffries, thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.